The ultimate betrayal. Karina was certain she had found her forever with Shaw. They had met on a quiet autumn day at a cozy bookstore, where he'd accidentally bumped into her, sending her coffee splashing onto his coat. He'd laughed it off, flashing a charming smile that made her heart skip a beat. Insisting that they replace the spilled coffee, he bought her another cup, and from that moment on, they were inseparable. Shaw was everything she'd dreamed of: kind, attentive, ambitious. He had a way of making her feel like she was the only person in the world, and before long, they were talking about the future. Their romance was a whirlwind, filled with candlelit dinners, spontaneous road trips, and nights spent sharing secrets under the stars. Shaw proposed to her after only a year, on a sunset-lit pier during one of their weekend getaways. With tears in her eyes and a heart full of hope, Karina said yes. She imagined their future together, their wedding, a beautiful home, and the family they would one day have. To Karina, it felt like a fairy tale. But that fairy tale began to show cracks as time passed. Shaw worked as a financial consultant and was often away on business trips. Karina had always understood that his job demanded long hours and travel, but lately, his absences had become more frequent. He missed dinners, canceled plans last minute, and often seemed distracted. He would brush off her concerns with vague explanations about work stress, promising her that things would settle down soon. But that uneasy feeling in Karina's gut wouldn't go away. One evening, Karina's best friend Rachel brought up the topic as they shared drinks on Karina's balcony. "Doesn't it bother you, him being gone all the time?" Rachel asked cautiously. Karina shrugged, trying to appear unbothered. "I mean, it's his job. He's just busy, you know?" Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Busy enough to miss your engagement dinner last week? Karina, I know you love him, but it feels like you're making excuses." Her friend's words lingered in her mind long after Rachel had left. Karina realized that she had been brushing off a lot of things, ignoring the unease that had slowly built up over the months. She had chosen to see only the best in Shaw, to believe that their love was stronger than any obstacle. But doubt had begun to creep in, casting a shadow over her trust. A few weeks later, Shaw told Karina he would be going on another business trip. Determined to reconnect, she decided to surprise him with a visit, planning to meet him when he returned to his hotel. She called the hotel to confirm his reservation, but the response she received left her stunned. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We don't have a Shaw Mitchell staying here, and there's no reservation under that name," the receptionist said politely. Karina felt her heart drop. She double-checked the hotel details, certain she'd made a mistake, but every piece of information lined up, except for Shaw's presence. The receptionist even checked previous weeks and months, but couldn't find any record of his stay. As she hung up the phone, Karina's hands shook. Where was he really? And what else was he hiding? Unable to shake her suspicions, she did something she never thought she'd do. She went through his belongings. In his study, she found a locked drawer, and after searching around, she discovered the key hidden beneath a pile of documents. Her hands trembled as she unlocked it, feeling a mixture of guilt and dread. Inside the drawer, she found something that made her blood run cold: a set of keys with an address in a nearby suburb, and a small photograph of Shaw with a woman she didn't recognize. In the picture, they stood close together, smiling warmly, with two young children in the background. The woman had a ring on her left hand, and Shaw's arm was wrapped protectively around her. Karina's heart pounded as she pieced together the horrifying reality. Shaw had a family, a wife, children, a whole life she knew nothing about. It felt like the ground beneath her had vanished, leaving her in free fall. The next day, Karina drove to the address on the key tag, unsure of what she would find. As she arrived, she felt her stomach twist. It was a picturesque suburban home with a white picket fence and a children's bicycle lying on the front lawn. She sat in her car for a long moment, struggling to breathe, torn between wanting to turn back and needing to confront the truth. Finally, with shaky legs and a racing heart, she made her way to the front door and knocked. After a few moments, the door opened, and a woman stood there, holding a toddler on her hip. She looked at Karina with a polite smile, but confusion flickered in her eyes. "Can I help you?" Karina's voice was barely a whisper as she asked, "I'm looking for Shaw. Is he here?" The woman's face changed, her smile fading, replaced by a look of alarm. She set the toddler down, her eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" Swallowing the lump in her throat, Karina replied, "I'm his fiancée." The color drained from the woman's face. She stared at Karina, shock and disbelief contorting her expression. In a low, trembling voice, she said, "I'm his wife." Karina staggered backward, as if she'd been struck. Her mind spun, trying to process the words. Wife. Shah was married. And not only that, he had children, a family. She had been unknowingly living a lie, a twisted dream that had shattered into pieces before her eyes. Unable to face the woman's angry, heartbroken gaze, Karina stumbled back to her car, her chest tight with grief and betrayal. She sat there for a long time, trying to comprehend how the man she loved, the man she had planned a life with, could have deceived her so completely. The confrontation with Shah that night was bitter and raw. He returned home to find her waiting, her face pale, eyes swollen from tears. When she demanded the truth, he tried to lie at first, but she silenced him with a single look. Reluctantly, he confessed everything. He told her that he'd been leading a double life for years, torn between his obligations to his family and the excitement he found with her. He tried to apologize, saying he'd never meant to hurt her, that he'd genuinely cared for her. But Karina was beyond caring. His words felt hollow, empty, meaningless. She realized that every moment, every promise, had been built on lies. The future she had dreamed of had vanished, replaced by a nightmare of betrayal. Devastated, Karina ended their engagement that night, severing all ties with him. She moved out of their shared apartment and retreated from the world, finding it nearly impossible to share the truth with her family and friends. How could she explain that the life she had built, the love she had trusted, had been nothing more than an illusion? In the weeks that followed, Karina struggled with an unbearable loneliness and grief. She withdrew, barely eating or sleeping, haunted by memories of the life they'd planned, of the lies Shah had told her. Her friends rallied around her, but she kept the details to herself, unable to admit the depth of her pain. Eventually, she sought therapy, knowing she needed help to move forward. Slowly, piece by piece, she began to rebuild herself. She found comfort in small routines, rediscovered her love for painting, and began spending time with people who truly cared for her. She threw herself into her work, creating pieces that expressed the depth of her heartbreak and resilience. Months later, she received a letter from Shah. It was filled with apologies, words of regret, and promises of self-reflection. He admitted that he'd been wrong, that he'd broken her heart in a way that could never be mended. He didn't ask for forgiveness, only that she would find happiness, even if it wasn't with him. Reading the letter, Karina felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. She knew she would never fully forgive him, but she also understood that holding on to the pain would only keep her trapped in the past. She took a deep breath, folded the letter, and tucked it away. It was time to let go, to move forward. Standing by her window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, Karina felt a quiet strength growing within her. She had survived the ultimate betrayal, and though the scars would remain, they would be a testament to her resilience. She had learned her worth, her strength, and she knew that one day she would find love again. But this time, it would be with someone who was worthy of her trust. With a final glance at the letter, she closed that chapter of her life, stepping into a new beginning, free from the lies and betrayal of the past.